As we know, it has always been technology advancements that created copyright somehow. It's a cliché for copyright lovers going back to Gutenberg and its printing invention, at least in the Western side, let's say, of the world. That facilitated duplication of works and then created the first need for copyright protection. The main, historically, the origins of an international regulation of copyright can be found and still are in force in the Berne Convention for the Protection of Literary and Artistic Works back in 1886. Regarding the international instruments, that means that copyright principles are somehow aligned all over the world. So whatever we say is not fit only for Europe or, let's say, the developed countries, but almost for the whole world. We had the World Intellectual Property Organization known as WIPO Copyright Treaty in 1996. And of course, there are a lot of copyright, there is a lot of copyright European Union legislation. And the main important directives that have been implemented in each member states are the one from 2001, the InfoSoc, as we call it, Copyright Directive, and the recent one of 2019 of the European Digital Single Market Copyright Directive. And then, after Gutenberg, we find ourselves in the era of artificial intelligence. I will not stay long here, but I always found it very enlightening to know that we have been talking for AI mainly during the past years, but it's been long here getting prepared to appear and reach the public audience. Before going to the specifics about AI and copyright, let's remember who, what, and for how long is protected under copyright legislation. So in print media, we may recognize categories of right holders such as the authors, meaning the primary authors, the individuals who create the content, such as the writers of books, articles, and essays, the co-authors, in which case we call about joint author, we talk about joint authorship, the publishers, who sign publishing contracts and often transfer certain rights to the publishers, the right holders, so the authors, the original ones, and they have also their own specific related or neighboring right, as we say, about their printed material. Their illustrators and photographers who create artwork, and of course the photos included in printed media, the editors and compilers, especially in cases of anthologies of works who may hold copyright for selecting and arranging the content. I need to make something different here. Okay. Regarding visual media, we may identify right holders such as creators, visual artists, the individuals who create original artwork, including paintings, drawings, sculptures, the photographers, the creators of original photographs, the filmmakers and directors who are responsible for the creative direction of films and videos, the production companies, film studios, animation studios. So what are the main rights recognized by copyright? Just to remember, we have two kinds of rights: economic rights about the financial exploitation of a work, and moral rights about the personal relationship of an author or a right holder with his, her work or contribution. So in the economic rights, we have the right of reproduction. This is totally understandable, I think. The right of translation and adaptation of a work, the right of distribution, the rental and public lending right that concerns mainly public lending, for example, of books, the right of public performance, not so much interesting for books and images, and the right of broadcasting or communication to the public. And the moral rights, we mainly recognize the right of paternity, That is how it was initially called. We could say it maternity in our times, and the right of integrity, to keep my work as it originally was. And for how long are these rights protected? Copyright normally protection lasts until 70 years after author's death, or 70 years after the death of the last surviving author in the case of a work of joint authorship, and neighboring rights, such as for the publisher. The term of protection of related or neighboring rights is generally 50 years after the protected contribution has been made. We have a very rich, as we call it, European Union communautaire acquis. That means a list of directives and regulations concerning copyright. The main important and applicable for the topic under discussion is the one of 2001, and the last one of 2019, the DSM directive as it is called. And we will see for what point exactly it is very important in our case. And then we have finally artificial intelligence, which we must accept that it will grow bigger and will expand in all aspects of our life. And it is characterized as a disruptive technology, meaning that it alters totally the way we do business, we think, and we work. Up to now, most of the technology advancements influenced in copyright concerned the way of distribution of works. We had, for example, digital piracy, peer-to-peer piracy, and things like that, which had to do with how the work was distributed without the license and the control of the right holder. Now, the main disruptive point of artificial intelligence is that it affects even creation of works. And let's see why. The main challenge is to copyright could be distinguished in two categories. The ones that concern the input of artificial intelligence, that is the data an artificial intelligence tool needs to educate itself and to develop. And there we have the questions if the exceptions, and especially the fair use by the US legislation and the text and data mining exception by the European legislation, apply, or if it should be licensed. And the main tendency of copyright lovers like me is to say that it should be licensed. And the second challenge lies in the output of AI, in the things that you can produce with the help or totally by the use of artificial intelligence. And there we have the question, what is protected, who is the owner? And the tendency seems to be to keep the human-centric character of copyright legislation and to keep, as we say, the human in the loop. Now I cannot change my slides. Okay. There is a mostly fear-driven approach by some right holders because they want to maintain control of their works and decide if they want them exploited and get appropriate remuneration for this exploitation. To do so, they must be able to know when these actions take place and to license and enforce their rights. And the main questions are, can AI be the answer to AI itself? Can it be transparent, artificial intelligence, to know what has been used to create a work, if it is artificial intelligence, AI-generated output and things like that? And can it provide appropriate and fair remuneration? Starting from the AI input, the training data, as we say, we need to license the use of the input data based on the current law, and especially based on the reproduction right that is recognized for all right holders. Some argue that copyright law should always evolve with technology, and therefore we might want to revise it, but this has already been done radically recent in the EU Copyright Directive of 2019. And do the exceptions or limitations of copyright law apply in the case of training data? I would like to remind here that exceptions and limitations are cases in which the legislator has already decided that the right holder should not be remunerated and should not be asked for a license under specific conditions, for example, for education, for educational reasons at schools during the exams, or at the books used for public education in Greece. This is a characteristic example. Based on the Anglo-American copyright doctrine, one might think of the fair use cases, which could be revoked, but the commercial aspect, because fair use cases concern cases where there is not a commercial benefit from the user, will be the basic problem. So in some specific cases, text and data mining exception could also be applied under very specific conditions. In simple words, text and data mining could be described as a software procedure that enables the extraction of implicit information from large amounts of text and data. This, the application of this exception could face the problem of possible conflict with the copyright on the creative works being extracted and their creative arrangement, as well as with a sui generis right on databases provided for by European and national legislation. The European Union has introduced 2 exceptions to clarify the cases and conditions under which text and data mining operations are lawful, while making a fundamental distinction between entities dedicated to research and protection of cultural heritage and entities pursuing a profit-making purpose. Both exceptions assume that the actors of text and data mining have lawful access to the works and databases they are extracting information from. Therefore, there is already a distinction between those who have the resources to negotiate licensing agreements and those who do not. Now, we have already faced some cases regarding input problematic. There has been the Authors Guild versus Google about the Google Books case, where this case involved Google's digitization of books for its Google Books project, which included using scanned books as training data for its AI-based search and text recognition algorithms. In this case, back in 2015, the court ruled in favor of Google, stating that the use of digitized books for search and snippet display constituted fair use under US copyright law. Later on, we had the case of Andy Warhol Foundation against Lynn Goldsmith. And in this case, it was involved a copyrighted photograph by Lynn Goldsmith that was transformed by Andy Warhol into a series of artworks. Although not directly about AI, touches on transformative use, which is relevant to how copyright materials can be altered and used for new purposes, including AI training. The US Supreme Court ruled in favor of Goldsmith, stating that Warhol's use was not transformative enough to constitute fair use. And now, recently, in last December, we have the big case of the New York Times against ChatGPT, actually, because the New York Times sued OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement, opening a new front in increasingly intense legal battle over the unauthorized use of published work to train artificial intelligence technologies. It actually claimed that AI had used without license all its publications, and we are still waiting for the outcome. Now, what about the works produced, the AI output by using artificial intelligence? Whether AI-generated works are eligible for copyright protection varies from each country. In general, we can say that substantial human involvement is required for this eligibility. The possibility of considering an artificial output as an original work with human intervention arises only when a physical person is capable of controlling and potentially intervening in the end result output reproduced by the AI system. So this approach may apply to works generated with the assistance of AI as long as there is involvement of a physical person. And then we talk about AI-assisted works. It is not sufficient if the person merely triggers or initiates, just enters a prompt, let's say, the process without having control over the output and the intended result. The key factor is the presence of creative intent and control over the end and the result, whether it is a work or an AI output. If a physical person is able to control the end result or make adaptation changes in order to achieve the desired result, then this is considered an AI-assisted output and is regarded as a work of authorship. On the other hand, if all the elements are autonomously regulated by an artificial intelligence system without any possibility of human intervention, then it is about an AI-generated output. We had a recent case. This is Zarya of the Dawn, where originally, this is a comics. It has text and images. The United States Copyright Office decided to attribute copyright protection for the context, but not for the images, because they were created using Midjourney's artificial intelligence. So there was no copyright protection by the Copyright Office for the images and only for the text. And we have, of course, other more elaborated copyright issues concerning transparency. We need to know what works is used for what reason in the digital environment, including the AI applications themselves. We are talking about black boxes, because we have unknown data sets used for AI training and development without authorization and remuneration of right holders. But the AI Act provides for transparency obligation of providers of foundation models to make available a sufficiently detailed summary of the use of training data protecting under copyright. And the second question is the recognition of those works with the help of machine learning and AI tools accurate and transparent so that it cannot be challenged? And that will be the new hype about the algorithmic transparency request, which is also discussed in other regulations of the European Union, such as the DSA Act. What seems to be important for copyright protection nowadays is data quality significance and data and copyright infrastructure interference. We have we can go further and discuss about the right holder's responsibility, especially through collective management organizations, to have their works delivered with proper rights information, the accompanying data or metadata, properly documented so that their works can be recognized and identified in a standardized way to improve their visibility and traceability in the internet. The above transparency could lead to the accuracy of remunerations and to the principle of appropriate and fair remuneration, which is an objective of the European Union copyright legislation in forms. I will skip the rest because I think they are very technical for our discussion today. So what should be licensed? Input, mainly when for commercial purposes, but also for education and research, and the output for exact copies or when it contains work in a recognizable form or when humans are involved. How could we license all these AI outputs and inputs? Either by individually, and there have been model clauses drafted, for example, by US writers calling themselves Authors Guild Union, or collectively by providing blanket licenses, as we call them, and following the blueprint of multi-territorial licensing that at least in European Union there is specific legislation about it. And there have been some proposals also about an AI levy at the face of the literary artistic output of AI, giving money in advance. What is necessary is to have easy to get and easy to understand licenses and standardized remuneration protocols. Just allow me to go further. So we are talking about a new era of data copyright infrastructure, and they're either in the metaverse or regarding artificial intelligence. There are seminars taking place online by WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, talking about it. We should tag works appropriately in a standardized way, get one source of truth of all works to mitigate the risk of any manipulation of data and revenue allocation. And of course, we should keep in mind the need to protect and promote cultural diversity, which could be enhanced as a policy priority and practically by encouraging and facilitating institutionally, even by facilitating budgeting or investment of non-commercial, more marginal repertoire and books with proper rights management information of similar works so that they are found and traced in the digital environment. I don't know if you have ever heard about IFRO, which is the umbrella collective management organization, let's call him, the International Federation of Reproduction Rights Organization, an independent non-profit membership association that facilitates on an international basis the collective management of reproduction and other rights in text and image works through the cooperation of the member reproduction rights organizations. They recently held in Kazakhstan a conference about the future of collective management, where they underlined the need for technical solutions and metadata standards and identifiers such as ISNI and ISCC, which will become more important in the future, especially for artificial intelligence. Here I have included you the only provisions of AI Act concerning, this is the only article explicitly mentioning copyright in AI Act, because the AI Act is an horizontal regulation. It's not specific about copyright, since as we saw, there is a rich already regulation and legislation about copyright. It provides for a policy, a copyright policy that general purpose AI models should have, and to give also the sufficiently detailed summary of the content used for the training of their machines. I will skip because I have not kept my promise about the time. All the preamble references where actually what is said is that, okay, you have the exception and the TDM, but respect copyright and do not abuse this exception. This is the main point of all these preambles references. And as closing remarks, I will say that we need to keep up with evolution, that we have stepped from denial and downgrading and confusion to acceptance and adaptation. And of course, ChatGPT, that appeared publicly more than a year ago, has accelerated this phase of acceptance. Copyright law implementation nowadays and enforcement needs to be addressed more interdisciplinary. We need data governance, which is a new side of proper copyright enforcement. A good thing is that European Union and United States seem to be aligned towards the regulation of artificial intelligence, in contrast, for example, with what happened with personal data legislation. And we could profit from AI tool as a tool for copyright management. It's inevitable to use it. The sooner the better for the author's rights and the survival of copyright without needing to revise it fundamentally. As Darwin said, it's not the most intelligent species that survive, it's the species most responsive to change. Thank you very much.
I want to take this opportunity to, since you are a cohesive community, I want to take an opportunity and ask you some questions via Mentimeter and gain some insights about your search behavior towards periodicals. So if you see my screen, you can see a QR code that you can access the questionnaire from. Otherwise, you just go to Mentimeter and you input this number that you see on my screen. Do you see my screen?
We do.
Okay. So the first question is, which categories of periodicals are you interested in? I'll give you some time to go into Mentimeter and put the code. Oh, okay, very interesting. Most people, popular culture, scholarly, news, and other not listed here. That would be very interesting to find out. Okay. Okay, so I'll go to the next question. What are your motivations for searching for periodicals? Strongly disagree to the left, strongly agree to the right. So if you agree with something, you pull the bar towards the right. If you use, if you want to find periodicals for your school research, for research in general, for personal interest, for work, or other reason to engage and search for periodicals. Okay. Okay, we can see the answers. Most people is for research reasons, as I thought. Okay. Next, move on to the next slide, which is what is the main obstacle in accessing periodicals online? So is it because digital collections are dispersed and you have to look in many places? Is it for lack of good metadata, the information that describe periodicals? Is it because you're unsure of how to use databases, don't know where to search, or maybe there is no obstacle for you? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I hope I'm not going too fast. Shall we move on to the next question, which is rank in order of importance how you search for periodicals. So is it date of publication, location of publication, subject, editor, the name of an editor or a writer that you're looking for, or any other parameter? So what is more important when you go to search for periodicals? Chronologies matter, places, subjects, or people? You rank them. You change the order of importance to reflect what agrees with you. Mhm. Okay. Okay. So subject seems to be most important, and two more. Please indicate how much you agree or disagree with the following statements. Strongly disagree on the left, strongly agree on the right. You pull the bar in the same way. So in the past, periodicals served as a forum for public discourse, enabling the exchange of ideas and opinions. Local newspapers and regional magazines helped build community identity and citizenship. Periodicals report events, but more importantly, they give you a window into how people understood these events at the time. How periodicals may have generated meanings for whom and why remains central to humanistic research. We can construct typological categories that capture the full range of aesthetic, material, and social features of the periodical. and periodicals produced as part of social movements and by marginalized and oppressed groups offer much insight into past societies. It's very interesting to see what your community thinks about these issues that I think are quite core to the humanistic research. Thank you. And final one, just finish the phrase with the finish the phrase. Periodicals are we should see the responses in a word cloud that hopefully capture the okay. Excellent. Okay, so thank you very much. Windows, worlds, fun, rich, interesting, invaluable cultural scenarios. So I am going to go on with my presentation, and you should be able to see my screen.
Yes, now we see your presentation. If you can also, yes, exactly. So now we have it full screen.
Just let me know if it works, okay?
Yeah, we are seeing the slide. Yeah, the second one right now, I believe.
So I, as you know, my name is Elena Lagoudi, and I work for the National Documentation Center in Athens, Greece, where we have this vision for the past at least 12 years that I've been here, which is to create a digital public space where all the scientific and cultural content that has been funded with public money is accessible, reliable, reusable, and available in the long run for citizens and communities of interest for the purposes of learning, creativity, and inspiration. To do this for cultural content, we have created an infrastructure called Search Culture GR. It is the National Collection of Cultural Data for Greece. It offers a single access point for Greek cultural heritage. It has at the moment more than 800,000 cultural heritage objects from 82 contributing institutions, and there are 104 collections, digital collections, covering all aspects of culture, from archaeology and material heritage to intangible heritage, folklore, photographs, periodicals, and much more. We are also the national aggregator for Greek cultural heritage for Europeana, the European Digital Library, having contributed more than 500,000 cultural heritage objects to Europeana. The way we do this is by developing a range of discovery services which are designed to showcase the breadth, depth, and relevance of Greek cultural heritage in Greece and beyond. And by what I mean by discovery services, I mean curated pathways into this vast library of content, which aim to answer the basic questions about cultural content: what it is, when was it made, what is it about, where was it made, or where does it refer to, and by who, or which persons were involved in the making of it, or which persons are referred by it. So these are basic questions that can be applied to almost most cultural content. And the reason we need this semantic enrichment is because the content we collect from the GLAMS institutions, the galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, is very heterogeneous, and each kind of institution documents content according to their own needs and their own audiences. So what we get is content that we need to homogenize and normalize and make searchable in a unified way. To do this, we take, in this example, different ways to refer to a vase, and we give it a tag from a linked open data vocabulary called cultural heritage item types. This ensures that every time someone searches for vases, they will get the results that have all the other words referring to vases under them. The same thing happens for people. To disambiguate amongst all the different creators and people present in our metadata, we use a catalog of notable persons, which is a data set that includes temporal, spatial, gender, and occupational information for about 10,000 people. And we identify for each cultural heritage object if it's created by one of these people or relating to one of these people, especially useful in disambiguating big famous families in Greece of politicians or fighters or military people. Another set of enrichments we did recently is enriching place geographical terms. We did this by applying vocabulary of geographical names, geonames, our version. So it's based on geonames. It is enriched with all the different appellations in historical and place names. So people can search for example, a Turkish toponym and find its ancient names, or vice versa. You can search for an ancient Greek toponym in modern Turkey and find all the cultural heritage objects relating to this place. This was a very big project that took a lot of effort and human curation, because we had to identify through many similarities. You see in this example, the Tripoli, the name of a city, Tripoli, appears in just Eastern Mediterranean basin 5 times, representing 5 different places. And disambiguation on its own doesn't happen in a search engine. This is something we had to curate and do manually. This happens in a very smart interface, a tool that my colleague developed. It's called Semantics GR, and it's a platform that enables one to publish semantic resources as linked open data, and includes a tool that does enrichments, semi-automatic enrichments. It's a self-improving tool, which could obviously be made better with AI at some point, but at this point, it works very well as it is because it needs human curation in it. It helps the curator handle bulk enrichments, and the result is something like that. We have very clear, homogenized item types, subjects, places, people, and historical periods. The size of the word indicates the volume of cultural heritage object carrying this tag. So you can see the most famous subjects, the most famous places, item types, people, and the volume of cultural heritage content per period. The latest work we did on geonames has enabled really nice interactive ways to explore cultural heritage, which is by through a map. By zooming in, you see clusters of items per location. And with your filters on your left, you can make this query even more specific. You can search for a person within this map, a type of object or a subject, and see the results on a map. The other very recent feature we added was person-based cultural heritage object search. So you can search with either a name, birth year, place of birth, place of date, or even profession. In this example, I'm looking for artists, and the results come up. 2,177 persons have this occupation, this tag of an artist. You can see the gender filter on the left. You can choose women or men, By choosing women, we see the list of women artists, and on the right, we can see the map of birthplaces and death places. You can explore these people on a map. This is a map of their birthplaces, of these women artists that have a recorded birthplace. That's where the number is less than the previous example. We've got 528 women here, 332 here, and the results on a map. The benefits are many. For the citizen, it offers democratic, accessible pathways to cultural heritage. Maps is a very easy way to engage and search for content, but also we try to illuminate the hidden stories, women's stories, local history, social history. We work a lot with teachers to promote teaching from primary sources and learning with primary sources. And it also engages with diaspora and English speaking audiences, as everything's bilingual, or vocabularies is, and the interface and all our discovery services. For the cultural sector, it has many benefits as well. Not the conversation for this webinar. I'm just pointing out that it brought a lot of efficiency, transparency, and public value to the process of digitizing cultural heritage with public money. This is an example of the core, or at the core, at the heart of the aggregator is the cultural heritage object. And the cultural heritage object for us is the digital representation, the digital replica. This is a picture from the Hellenic Library and Historical Archive. It's some famous literary people, why they were exiled. On the right, you see the metadata. In black, the original metadata from the organization that we got whose collection this item belongs to. And with pink, you see the semantic metadata that we've added. They're all links, which means that in reality, no single item in search culture is on its own, but every item comes with connections to other items that link to it, making searching and discovery very much an intuitive process that cultivates, that talks to this part of our brain that is about searching information, encyclopedical knowledge, jumping from branch to branch and idea to idea, which is very much a way that our brain thinks. Through the semantic links, at the beginning of the pandemic, in the COVID pandemic in 2020, when the need for digital content was great, we developed a new service, a new discovery service called thematic exhibitions. It's basically stories that emerge through the collections, objects that have a common denominator, and the process of creating them follows the analog model of exhibition making, which is I do my research, I have a curatorial query, I lay out my 3D model, and I'm curating my narrative in rooms and sub-rooms, try to create the narrative of the exhibition as a whole. Well, we did this through making the query in a specialist query form. The results can be shown on the map, and then we can put some contextual information like a text and some images to tell people what is this story about. You can also show your items on a grid if maps are not relevant as an information for your exhibition. In this process, we try to highlight unseen stories and less obvious big categories such as archaeology or Byzantine. We try to show aspects of social history such as feminism in Greece, highlight the work done by women who are mostly anonymous makers in the form of embroideries and handicrafts, heritage trades and folk tales, traditions, and even more fragile aspects of heritage, such as olfactory heritage, the story of smells, and how people's cultural connections with the sense of smell. So as you see, it's not, we try to cover a bit of everything and find pathways that will be interesting for many different people, because in the basis of our thinking, in an aggregator, every good search tells a story. Now, periodicals, sorry, one feature that we're going to launch soon, we did a pilot a few years ago, is using these exhibitions as a crowdsourcing tool to get stories from citizens who are engaged with us. This is an example of a PhD student who did crowdsourced, who did a pilot thematic exhibition on his dissertation. And the benefits of this endeavor are many, and this is something we're definitely going to do more of in the future. Now, periodicals. Let's do a search for periodicals. This is your search box. You can specify in each field when, where, how you're going to search. Here we're searching, start typing the word periodical. You come up with serial publication, which is a broader term. We see that we have 19,900 serial publications in search culture. In the filters on the left, you can filter these results and see from these publications which carry the same subject, which were edited on a certain place, in which a certain person was involved, or you can prescribe chronology filters, or even see the collecting institution. I just want to see periodicals by this institution. If the institution has used IIIF in their digitization, it's very useful because when you get to the actual cultural heritage jobs, and you can search for a word. In this example, you search for the word government in Greek, and the system finds out 11 instances where the word government was used in a local newspaper. That is a very interesting way to view periodical editions if IIIF technology has been implemented by the organization. Quickly showing you what I found in regards to periodicals. Well, there is a lot of local press, very interesting to study local communities. There's a lot of orthodox content and ecclesiastical and church history, church periodicals. There is a lot of cultural content touching on different kinds of arts, from cinema to theater, visual arts, everything. And then we've got social history, of course. We've got prints and publications by various groups and organizations in Greece's contemporary history. Of course, there are the many periodicals referring to women and children. And finally, a big part of the women's periodicals are representing feminism and the struggle of women to gain equal rights in the 20th century. Through this search, we can get to the core of the questions around cultural periodicals, which is what counts, what is available, who provided and preserved it, and for what reason, how and to what end has been used, and by whom. And hopefully all these questions can be answered through the research methodologies that we just watched. Now, in terms of AI, and in the data curator, the data curation pipeline that I just showed you, we have to really carefully think about where to position AI, because if we don't think about it strategically, we're going to have an even more complex problems in our hands. What I mean is that you have to think if it's more valuable for you as a cultural data institution, whether you're a museum or a library, an archive, if AI is something you want to use so AI utilize AI to produce more data, utilize AI as a methodology for outreach to engage citizen scientists and communities, or if your role in regards to AI is just being food for AI, so training data. And these questions are very valid because it allows you to really think about how you're going to incorporate this in your methodology strategically. One example is a pilot we did last year, participating in this European project called Crafted, aiming at promoting and enriching traditional arts, crafts. The consortium came up with a pilot project for crowdsourcing using AI. So we asked AI to identify colors in Greek embroidery works And then we got a community of citizen scientists to validate the selections made by AI. So in a way, it was a mixed model in and out. We used AI to produce the data and then citizen scientists to validate the data. So that's like a mixed example. But I think the main question that data curators have to ask, and we have to ask ourselves as a sector, is what is the impact of applying AI methodologies? If it's methodologies used to just save money for your organization and improve your curation, it affects you. If you use AI for crowdsourcing engagement, community engagement, the reach is out, the impact is bigger, is wider. But the biggest impact you can have is by using your data sets as training data sets for AI, because that's where you can play a really important role. The importance of this role is highlighted perhaps here. This is a selection of 7 cultural heritage objects that I found. Welfare of retarded and paralyzed children, handshake with war cripples, invalid tribute, gypsy baptism, heads of Negroes. What is the problem with these titles? What is the problem with this data? They are biased. And this is a conversation that's very emergent across the humanities and the GLAM sector in Europe, at least. And it's about decolonizing data. Of course, for Greece, decolonization is relative because we don't have such a colonial past, recent past. But by decolonization, we tend to include wider concepts such as the idea principles, intersectional inclusion, diversity, equity, and access principles. So it's a chance to look at our collections with this filter and filter out words and concepts that propagate these biases and these prejudices. This publication, Words Matter, by the National Museum of World Cultures, highlights exactly that and offers alternatives as to what language we can use that is more inclusive and less biased. So in the end, it's about looking at your data. If you are going to use your data as a food for AI, as training data for AI, it's very important to get rid of biased, prejudiced language, is to look at your data from a feminist point of view, is to look at your data from a fair point of view, from an accessible point of view, because in the end, it's up to us humanists to help AI not carry the prejudices and the biases of its creators. And it's for us humanists to select the appropriate data sets for the emergent AI to train on, and hopefully develop products, services, and a world where inequality will no longer be such a big issue. And that it is for me. Thank you.